Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's time to get on one of y'all's favorite projects, the ultimate crew cab. Now I know we just have a regular cab sitting back here, but it is vital to this project. Let me fill you guys in with what I mean. All right, guys, like I said in the intro, this cab right here is vital to that project and getting that 6.7 Powerstroke happy. If you don't know what I'm talking about my ultimate crew cab project. It's a 1972 crew cab that's Wimbledon white, and I said it on a few episodes back. It'd be back in like the fall. I'll link some episodes that pertain to this truck in the description down below, so you can check those out if you missed them. But that truck's a 1972 F-250 crew cab, two-wheel drive truck that had some frame rot in the frame, unfortunately, but decided to use that truck for my ultimate crew cab project. It's sitting on a 2015 F-250 chassis with a 6.7 Powerstroke 6R140 transmission. And yeah, that's my project. And moving right along with it, the cab is actually back there. It got back from media blasting and primer. It's back there waiting for me to, I actually want to get it set up back on the frame and get all the wiring sorted out, because if I have to cut any holes in the firewall to get wiring through it, or make brackets for the computer ECM and that kind of stuff, I want to do that before it goes to paint. So my main goal right now is to get all the electronics out of this cab. This is my donor truck that everything came out of. It's a 2011 F450 cab and chassis truck that used to be an ambulance. Now this truck was way back in my channel a year or so, actually probably 2 years now. It was originally going to be the crew hauler project, and unfortunately I kind of decided not to complete that project. There was just too many hurdles that we're going to have to jump through to get that project going, and I kind of lost interest in it, and it fell by the wayside. But luckily I didn't get too far along with that project before I decided to bail on it. It's kind of part of the reason why I decided to bail on it, just because I kind of got pushed aside and I never worked on it again and kind of lost interest in it. The main reason I didn't feel like completing that project was just the width of the 450 frame and the track width of that front end and getting that to work. You know, the obvious solution would be to put a F600 front end on it, but I'm just not a big fan of the F600 front ends. I think they look too big and bulky and big trucky, and I wanted this to be more of a pickup. And I think to make those front ends look right, you got to have like big 20-inch, 22-inch, 22.5 wheels, you know, semi wheels and tires. And the 19.5s I want to run on this thing, they just look too small. Anyway, lots of reasons I decided to step away from that project. It kind of morphed into this ultimate crew cab project. A few things are going to be different on this one. For one, I'm planning on keeping all original. The firewall is going to be original. The interior is all going to be original. As far as the dash components, everything's going to be original. You know, the metal dash and everything. I'm not putting the modern dash in it. As well as the interior, like the seats and stuff, I'm wanting to use original stuff. I actually got some bucket seats for the front, and actually the rear seat is right there, that red one. So it's going to be that maroon color on the interior and Wimbledon white on the exterior. But anyway, the reason I have this thing in here is I'm stripping all of the wiring out of it, and we have the engine bay harness, and then the cab. This is kind of the floor harness, and then the dash harness right here. I still have to strip it off the dash bar, and then the steering column. I'm not going to be using all of this. Luckily, I have some contacts still in the diesel industry from back when I used to be a diesel shop here, and some guys are going to help me out with the getting this 6.7 running, and we're going to be doing it with the bare minimum. I think this right here is all we're going to need for computer-wise. I have the ECU, the body control module, and the TCU, the transmission computer there, and I think we're going to try to do everything with these things here. There is a CAN bus system in this whole thing where all the modules talk to each other. So it's going to be a mess, and I'm probably not going to be able to tell you guys exactly how we did everything, but I'm going to try my best to show you guys how I do everything, because it's really complicated, and trying to document it all in video is going to be tough. But I'm going to do my best and try to show you guys everything I'm doing as best I can. But for now, I think I have almost everything stripped out of this cab. So I'm going to get this old shell out of here and you know, keep the wiring harness and everything, and then I'm going to get the frame and engine back in here and start plugging everything in, and I might be able to kind of turn everything on outside of the truck. But then I have to see if we need to program the computer before I start hacking the harnesses up and everything like that. So that stuff's yet to be determined. But right now I'm just trying to salvage everything out of here. And a lot of this stuff, like the 4 harness, I don't think I'm even going to be using it. But if I needed plugs and stuff out of it, I wanted to grab it so I have it, so I'm not just throwing this thing out in the weeds and it's getting all chewed up with mice and stuff and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get all the wiring out of it, you know, just for now. But for now, I'm going to finish stripping all the little bits and pieces out of this cab I need and get this thing out of here. And we'll get the frame and the engine back in here, and I'll catch up with you guys when I get that done. All right, guys, well, I have the chassis pulled back in the shop here with the engine. I'm going to give you a little bit of overview on this, just in case you don't remember. It's been a while since we've worked on this thing, but this is a 2015 Super Duty chassis, F250. It was originally a Crewcab short bed, but I did have to cut some out of here. I think it was like 6 or 7 inches. I don't exactly remember, but made a cut here and welded it back together and fish plated it and everything. So now it's the correct wheelbase for a Crewcab short bed bump side truck. I already have the bed mounted and all the cab mounts and everything mounted. Modified the rear ones here for the cab mounts on the rear of the cab. I added 2 in the center, and this one's actually covered up by the transmission controller right now. I'll have to move that, but you can see the other one over there. Added 2 in the center, that bump side cab, because they only have front and back cab mounts. So I added 2 in the center just for some extra support. Moved the front ones here, and added some up here for the core support, and welded on the actual front frame sections from the 72 frame, so we have the VIN stamping and everything in the frame. I have yet to go through all the axles and stuff and get gear ratios and stuff. These are just some spare axles I had sitting on it. I actually have some axles I'm going to use for this that I have to go through yet, but for now it's kind of just a standard rolling chassis. I am using a 2.5 inch I have Icon progressive coils up front, and I have a PMF custom spec Deaver leaf spring in the rear. That is a 2.5 inch lift, so should ride pretty good. But for now, my main goal is the wiring. I have all the wiring pulled out of that cab, that Super Duty cab we were messing with, and I have the engine bay harness draped over here, and I have the transmission harness hooked up, the engine bay harness. The engine harness is still on the engine, and I have everything hooked up over here with the PCM and all of this rat's nest of stuff here. I have to also hook up the body control module here, so I'm going to be working on that, kind of getting everything hooked up. So I'm going to get going on just kind of going through everything and plugging everything in and finding where everything goes. There's a ton of plugs in these things. So we're going to get that all sorted out, and then we'll see if we can add some power to it and turn the key on and see what happens. So we'll see. We'll hopefully be at that point the next time you see this. So I'm going to get cracking at it, and I'll catch you guys up when I get something done. All right, well, I've got a little further along. I have pretty much everything hooked up. I know it looks like a mess right now, and that's because it is. But a lot of this is going to get thinned out, and a lot of this is going to go away. All this wiring harness and stuff like all this. This is all the floor harness in the inside of the cab. Running things anywhere from speakers to door locks to all that kind of stuff that I'm not going to need. So a lot of that stuff is going to go away. But right here is the body control module. That is one item I have to keep. So I think that's going to be hidden under the dash somewhere around the glove box area. Heater box area, because that's on what side of the truck it's on, so that's going to be hid up there somewhere. And it has wires going to it from the engine all the way from the gauge cluster and all that kind of stuff, so it's kind of a central a hub for a lot of stuff, so that's a major part of it. The engine computer is sitting right here. This will end up being in the engine bay on the cowl. I'm going to make a slot for this to slide in up on the cowl, and have its own little case that it slides in, so it's protected from the weather, because the cowl there, when you go inside of that, it's the vent for the heater and everything, so it's open to the elements. So I'm going to make a little box that slides into, so it's kind of protected. Although it's made to be waterproof and all that, we still don't want to have it just sitting out in the elements. This is the glow plug control module, so that runs the glow plugs, and everything over here is the power, like the main power for everything coming from the battery. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep all this or not. We'll have to see how all that works out. Obviously, I'm pretty far from needing to worry about that. Here's your power distribution box. So this is where all the main fuses are for the engine and everything. It's actually pretty dirty. I probably should clean that up. But had that all hooked up, and then my gauge cluster here. The transmission computer is right here. I have the steering column up here. I'm not using the steering column. I just have it up here because I haven't taken it all apart yet. But we have the key hooked up there, and the transmission is hooked up. And yeah, a bunch of grounds I had to hook up and all that kind of stuff. But everything's all hooked up. And we have power to all the modules. There was a few plugs I missed that I had to go searching for and digging and finding plugs. But I hooked that up. And we have power. And I have hooked my scanner up. The transmission controller and engine controller are all talking together, so that's a big step. The door buzzer's on because the doors are not here, obviously, so it thinks the doors are open. But turn the key on, the gauge cluster all lights up. So that is good. You know, it's got a bunch of lights on it, but that's kind of to be expected. I can run the selector on the transmission and move the indicator on here. Now I'm not keeping the gauge cluster in any of that because I'm going to eliminate that and run the 72 dash and everything. So we're going to have the 72 gauge cluster in there. I think I'm going to run a Dakota Digital dash in this so we can have a GPS speedometer and all that kind of stuff. Just make life easier there and have a little bit fancier display for this truck. And all of that's nonsense. But so we're not doing this, but I have it on here just to get everything sorted out before I start weeding all the wires out and everything. I guess we can move forward to, I have cranked on it. Actually, I didn't expect it to crank. The first, I was just messing with the key and the thing cranked. But the engine does crank, which is a good sign. I think that means that the engine computer and the transmission computer are all talking together. I don't think it would let it crank if they weren't, because it wouldn't know what gear it's in, and you know, it wouldn't know that it's in park for sure, so it won't let it start crank. Kind of a safety feature, neutral safety switch, I guess. But I was playing with the key and the thing cranked over. But the only problem is it won't shut off with the key. If you're familiar with these newer Powerstrokes and Fords in general, when you hit the start, you can let go of the start on the key, and it still cranks until it fires. So just on a vehicle that's been running, it's not a big deal. But like on these 6.7 Powerstrokes, if you change a fuel filter or something, and you didn't prime the fuel system after you change the fuel filter, you can do that, and the thing will sit there and crank, and you're not holding the key. But this one, whenever he does that, you can shut the key off, and it stops cranking. But this one is not doing that for some reason, and I don't know why. So I had to scramble and unhook the battery. But I have the starter line where I can get to it, and there is oil in the engine, so I need to be cranking it anyway to get the oil system primed before I fire it, because it's been sitting for so long. But I figured I'd just show you guys that it's functioning. If I get the key turned in the right direction. So yeah, it's cranking. Only got one battery, so it cranks a little bit slow, but at least it's cranking. And I think if I had fuel to this thing, it would fire up. So that's my next step, is to get that fuel pump running. I don't know if I'm going to try to, I have to yank the harness off the F450 frame. I do want to keep that circuit so it's still running off the computer, because it shuts off when it doesn't need it and that kind of stuff. So I want to keep that circuit active instead of just hot wiring that pump. But the only thing in this harness I need is that fuel pump circuit, I think. So I might just do away with this plug and put my own waterproof connector there and just run the wires down there to the pump. But in the meantime, I might yank that other harness off just so it's easy, and I can verify that I need that or don't need all that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to work on getting some fuel to this engine, and we'll see if we can fire it off. Hey guys, well, it's the next morning here in the shop. Some things happened yesterday evening that might change all of this kind of stuff that we're doing. I've been talking to a guy that's actually making a standalone harness for these 6.7 Powerstrokes. He's made a couple, and I think he's making some for some other people, and he offered to make me one as well. So I'm leaning towards that route. It's kind of expensive. It's a couple grand, but I also get to eliminate all the headache of all this wiring and stuff and sorting through all that. I was actually kind of looking forward to the challenge of getting all that done and sorted out and figuring all the wires and the circuits out and what I need and weeding it out and kind of making everything custom for this truck.
But then again, that would probably only last about 5 minutes, and then it would just seem kind of labor intensive and not very fun. So that idea is pretty appealing to me. Some of the things he does with his harness wouldn't be ideal for my truck, so I'm going to talk with him and kind of see if we can change those or add those. He eliminates the patch system, the anti-theft system. I kind of wanted to keep that active to have some added security for this truck, so you're not just relying on a 1972 ignition to secure your vehicle. But we'll see how that goes. Maybe he can keep that active in the system, and I can somehow integrate that into the truck and have a patch system active on this truck. So, like I said before, it is pretty expensive. So it's kind of, do I want to have extra time, or do I want to have extra money for this project? And probably time is more valuable to me than anything right now, because I just have so many projects going on. If I can eliminate this, I'm kind of leaning towards, doing the whole harness system, because I can just, okay, this is all sorted out. I can move on to other things. And kind of wanted to tell you the other things I need to be working on, and a lot of this is here on the bed. I'm actually going to do the body work on this truck. I've never done body work before. I've done a little bit of color sanding and buffing, that kind of stuff, but I'm actually going to be doing blocking and sanding. This bed was a project, or we had it for another project, and it ended up not being nice enough for that project, so we went with an all-new bed for that one. So I got the leftovers, but this is actually a very nice bed. Mainly it's the pitting in the floor. There was some pitting on the floor and stuff that would be hard to fix correctly without just replacing it all to make it 100% nice. So but for this project, it'll be just fine. But I'm going to do the blocking and sanding on the bed and the cab over there once I get the rust repair completed. And then I think I'm going to take it to the guys that do my sandblasting and have them just paint have them paint it. They're not a automotive paint shop. They're an industrial coating kind of a place. They do a lot of work in refineries and that kind of stuff, and paint a bunch of industrial stuff. And they like to use really tough paint, and like the stuff they use on our frames is really tough. And I would like that same toughness for this. I'm not exactly looking for show quality. I'm more looking for durability. For one, because I live on gravel roads, and with the Super Duty wheels, or the Super Duty axles, the width of the axles is a lot wider than the old stuff. So unfortunately, the wheels do stick out, if you can tell that. So, that's definitely going to fling rocks and just tear up your paint out here. So if I do a real expensive automotive show truck paint job, it's just going to get chewed up, and that's just going to be disappointing and a waste of time, basically. So I'm going to see if I haven't even asked them if they would do something like this. So I'm going to see if they'll paint this in a really tough paint. And if they will, hopefully that will hold up better. And if not, if there's areas that are still getting chipped up, I'm going to see about, I found this new company that has this new product called Body Liner. It's like a rubbery coating like bed liner, but it's not textured like bed liner. It's smooth. They have a very smooth finish, and it almost looks like paint. I mean, it's very, in pictures it looks great, but you get up close, there's a little bit of I wouldn't want to say orange peel, but it's kind of like orange peel. You can see a little bit of it, so it's not laser smooth like paint would be, but it seems to be really tough, and it's kind of a rubberized coating, so it can take those impacts a little bit better. So I'm thinking if I get it painted and then it has some spots where it's getting chipped up, maybe I'll take it and get that body liner stuff put on the areas where it is taking the most abuse. I think a lot of it's going to be here on the bottom side of the bump. If it's flinging rocks up here, I think they'll hit here. And also I get it right here from the front tire. The front tire comes up and hits it right here. So, something like doing this right here in the body liner and maybe back here, something like that. And they do have a very smooth transition from the coating to the paint. So it would be visible. You'd be able to see it and feel it, but it's kind of not a show truck. Like I'm trying to say, this is going to be I'm going to use this truck to take out on buys, pull trailers and go on trips. And basically it's going to, I have a 6.7 dually truck, and that dually isn't the best for if you're not towing heavy, like anything other than towing heavy. I would prefer a truck like this to drive around. So it's going to be kind of my daily driver, extended trips kind of a truck. So it's actually going to get out and be used. So I kind of hated to spend all that time and money going to a paint shop and getting a really nice paint job done just to tear it up. Basically, I'm not going to just completely trash it, but you know what I mean. You know, you feel like you wouldn't want to take it out and drive it and always worried about it. So I'm going to try to save some money there and also save some time, because those guys are fast at my blaster, you know, relatively fast. They get stuff done within weeks instead of months for me. And then I'm also going to be doing the body work myself, so I'm going to be learning. I'm going to take an online course, see how that goes. I think I can figure it out. I'm usually pretty good at picking up stuff, but we'll see how that goes. I'll kind of bring you guys along. But I think I still want to try to get the engine running out of the truck, even if I don't use this wiring harness and all this setup. I kind of want to get it running just to hear it run again, because it's been a year and a half since it's ran, and just kind of generalize, you know, make sure everything's good, and then hopefully we can get that wiring harness. One thing that kind of screws up for me is the placement of the PCM and the BCM and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to have creative liberties on where those are put. You know, when I was doing the harness, I could probably kind of extend things and shorten things and get them where I want them to be. But if somebody else is making the harness, that's going to be hard, or I'll have to modify the harness once I get it. But we'll see how that goes. And I wanted to make a mount for the PCM in the cab before we send it off to paint, but he needs the PCM to program it for the base file to make everything happy. So I might try to sneak that in the cab before, but I kind of wanted to do that after I had the harness all figured out, so I could, you know it's in the right spot, and that's kind of why I started on this. But we'll see how that goes. It's, you know, I'm still early. I may not even do this, or see how long it's going to take him and that kind of stuff. But for now, today, I think I'm going to work on the fuel system and try to get some fuel to this thing. I might try to wire in the OEM frame harness that goes to the fuel pump. I'll see how that goes, or I could just hot wire it. I mean, it's just two ground and positive to the pump, and it should run. If I hot wire it with another battery and just enough to make it run, I guess it would probably work. The only problem is it's all quick connect fittings, and I'm not sure if I have a few fittings, but I'm not sure if I have enough to hook everything up to the engine. Like that return line and feed line there, and I probably should put some new fuel filters in it. I think I did before I started it last time, but I can't remember. But everything's been open to air, so contaminants can get in it, and you know, these things are very, 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 very sensitive on fuel, and I want to make sure I don't have any contaminants or water. Even though everything's been undercover, you know, moisture can still get in there and collect. So probably should change all that stuff out. But I'm going to get going on that, see if I can get something figured out. If I do, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, well, getting the whole fuel system working and getting the truck started lasted all about 10 minutes. Whenever I started trying to get everything hooked up. See, this is the fuel lines that go down to your fuel cooler that's down here on the frame rail. I tried to hook those up and get it to where I could get to the fuel pump. And I just don't have all the right fittings to hook the fuel pump up, and it really is not a big deal to hear this thing run again. I know it all runs, and there shouldn't be any issues. Everything was sealed up. So and plus, I'm going to plan on getting this thing running before it's all completed. You know, once I get everything in the cab and stuff, and working on the wiring and everything, I'll be able to hear it run before it's like everything's finished, and I'm like, crap, I should have tried this before everything's finished, you know what I mean? So I think we're going to wait to get the engine running, and I'm also going to wait on that standalone harness. I decided to just see what I could get done, give myself a week or so, and just see if it's going to be a massive daunting task or if it's something I can get going on. And I think it's probably going to be attainable thing I can do. I have a buddy who actually has done this, and he's done it pretty much exactly how I want to do it. So he's helping me out a little bit and giving me some pointers here and there. But yeah, so my kind of thoughts on this was, now I can build the harness to be an exact fit to where I need it to go in the cab and the frame. The main thing I want to worry about is the underhood appearance and the PCM placement and BCM placement. On the factory, let's see if I can show you here. On a factory Super Duty truck, the BCM is mounted right here in the kick panel. Well, I don't want to do that because it would be very visible right here in the bump side cab. So I want to tuck it up under the dash here, so the wiring might be different. And whenever I'm making it myself, if I need to adjust that or trim the wires or route it in a certain way, I can do that. And I want to do all this prior to this thing going to paint, because I'm going to be modifying the firewall and stuff, and I don't want to do that after paint, basically. And the PCM on the Super Duty truck is mounted right here in the cowl, and I think I want to do something similar like to that right here. I did a test fit, and so I can stay out of the washer, the window washer here, which I want to keep that. If I cut a hole here in the cowl, I can slide that PCM up under there, up under here. I can't go all the way back because there's not enough room, so it's going to stick out about this far, but I can at least kind of hide it in here, and I'm going to have a box that encloses it so it's not open to the elements up here. So stuff like that I definitely want to do before going to paint. So my goal right now is to strip out all the unnecessary circuits in here that I don't need, like stuff like the headlights. There's the turn signal stuff, a lot of the extra door locks, all that kind of stuff I'm not going to need out of this harness, because all I'm using on here is engine and transmission control. I'm going to strip all of those wires out and eliminate all of that stuff, and then I'm going to set the cab on the chassis here and probably have to mock up the front end and start routing stuff and get all the wires where I'm going to put them, and then I'll know lengths so I can reconnect them and cut and splice and that kind of stuff. And once all of that is sorted, and that's kind of what I was talking about, I'll be able to get the engine running. So once I get all that sorted, I'll be able to test fire the engine and make sure all of that is all happy. And that's kind of my goal right now. Once again, it might change, so hopefully it doesn't change 12 times before this video is over. But right now, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I'm pretty confident I can figure this out, especially with help of my buddy that's willing to help me out. So really thankful for that. And so yeah, I'm going to get going on this. I have access to all the OEM wiring schematics and all the circuits and stuff, so I'm going to start labeling stuff on this. This is actually the engine bay harness that goes under the engine, or in the engine bay, and goes from firewall to firewall basically, and makes a big loop around the engine bay. So I'm going to start labeling stuff that I think I need on that. Once I get that done, I'll move on to the next harness, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be pretty time consuming, labor intensive. I'm going to try to knock that out off camera, and I'll catch up with you guys when I get something done a little bit further along. Well guys, I've got a little further along with the wiring harness. I've been doing a lot of trimming. This right here is a pile just off of the engine bay harness, and this pile over here is off of the dash harness. I've got both of those kind of weeded out. There's still a lot to do on the engine bay harness. It is a massive harness, so it's going to have a lot of wires I need in it, but currently there's a lot of them in it I don't still. This is just the obvious ones. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is like your turn signals, headlights, that kind of stuff. Some of the four-wheel drive stuff I stripped out of here. Just the stuff that was blatantly obvious with the plugs, extra plugs that were on here that I didn't need. So there's still a lot here. Mainly this right here there's a ton here I don't need that I haven't weeded out yet. The dash harness I have weeded out to the bare absolute minimum I need. So this is all the wiring I have on that dash harness. It was a great big bundle of wires. So glad to have that all sorted out. Like here's some that I've stripped out that I don't need that are down here I yet to trim up. And here's some other ends. Once I get everything trimmed out, I'm going to either eliminate some of these plugs that are only going to have, like, see this massive plug? It's only going to have 3 wires going through it. So I'll just eliminate this plug and do away with all of these wires and just have these plugs and splice in another Deutsch style connector here. For these, it's only like 3 pins. So that kind of stuff is going to clean this up a lot more. So glad to have that all weeded down. I hope to get this one to that level pretty soon. But right now I'm working on the floor harness, which is this one here. This goes on the floor and to the doors. Like here's a door connector for the door jamb where the door connects. So there's a bunch of wires and stuff in here I don't need. I think there's only going to be a couple of circuits. I know there's a throttle position sensor. I'm going to need this one. And I think there's a CAN bus wire in here, right here. This is CAN bus. This blue and white, and white is the information network that all the modules communicate on. So this has to be active. You can trim it up if it's a terminated section of this where it branches off, but if it's part of the main loop, they all have to be connected and all happy for everything to talk. So I think it does travel through this harness. I'll have to check it again. But you know, things like that you have to be really mindful of, like, you know, just trimming stuff out. You got to be careful, because even though like the PCM is not connected to this harness, it is through the data link connector there, the CAN bus network. So like I said, I'm stripping all the wiring loom off of this thing so I can access the wires like this right here. So I have yet to do this side. This one's not, there's not a ton of stuff on it. Like a lot of places they just wrap tape on here. It's pretty easy. But some of the harness, like the dash harness, they wrap tape all the way, the whole harness. And that was a pain to get off without having to, here's all the wire loom and stuff. It's pain to get off without cutting any wires or anything like that. So gonna go working at it some more. My next step after I get that floor harness trimmed up, hopefully it's just going to be a few wires, is going to be dealing with all of this, because I want to get all of this trimmed down to where it's a more manageable bundle of wires like this one here. So I'm going to get working on that, and hopefully we'll have that done soon. Okay, I stripped a ton of wires out of that floor harness, pretty much everything, actually everything other than one wire. I just needed one wire out of that whole harness. It had some of the CAN bus wires going through it, but I terminated those and spliced them back together here, so I didn't end up needing that. This is just the reverse signal for the reverse lights, backup lights. I don't know why they sent it all the way from the body control module all the way back up to here, instead of just going where all the other wires go out the front, or even through the dash here. But I guess that's what they did. So that wire went all the way to the back of the cab almost, or I guess the middle of the cab. But anyway, it is almost all sorted out. I haven't weeded absolutely everything out of this yet. I am waiting till I do the body control or the junction box over there. So there might be a few in here that I don't need, but mainly this is power feed to the PCM and all the engine control units, the glow plug module and everything like that. So once I start figuring up the relays and everything I need out of the battery junction box, this might kind of fix itself. There'll be some circuits I won't need, but stuff like these two wires here, these twist together, these are the throttle inputs, so from your throttle pedal, and then there's your CAN bus network. So that kind of stuff gets fed up here to the engine control unit. So just the bare minimum of what I need. I might be getting a few more. I kind of looked at the schematics for the electric shift transfer case, and it's really not that complicated, and it actually has its own module. So I think I can just add on that module and the switch, and I'm going to see if it'll work. This truck was originally a two-wheel drive, so I don't know if that's not active in the BCM. I might have to turn some things on and stuff like that. I'll see if I can make it work. If I can, I'll just keep electric shift, and I'll mount the switch on the dash, kind of where the choke is on an early truck, you know, down there below the gauge cluster. I'll try to mount that there if I can get that to work, and if I can get that to work, the locking rear axle, the locking differential switch is in that one too, that switch too, and that control module. And I actually have a locking rear Sterling 10.5 locking rear end in this frame right now that I wasn't really planning on using because I didn't want to mess with getting that to work. But if I get all that working, I might as well wire up the electronic locking diff in this thing so I can have all that working. So that's down the road kind of deal. I have the transfer case module on order, so it'll be here, and I can kind of mess with that once I get, you know, all this kind of stuff kind of sorted. The big mess is going to be here in the battery junction box. I'm going to make my own fuse box and relay box. It's on order too, an aftermarket one that's going to simplify this a lot better. It's going to be a pain to figure all that out and get it all wired in, but I feel like once I replace it with that aftermarket one, it's going to turn out a lot better. It's going to be a lot cleaner and a lot simpler to work on and figure out and that kind of thing, instead of having this big mess. If you can see how big messy it is back here, you know, that's going to be the big pain. But I have all the schematics here of all that, so you know, it's just going through it all and finding the circuits and labeling them and putting them together. So just time consuming, but since I am going to try to do that electronic transfer case. I'm kind of glad that I actually got electronic transfer case, the actual unit itself. I have the motor off right here, but there's a shift motor right here. And I actually have, right here is a transmission harness off of this frame, because this frame was a four-wheel drive truck, obviously. And it has the plugs right here for the transfer case. So I'll swap out that two-wheel drive harness with this four-wheel drive one, and then do the extra circuits and stuff like that. And it actually, I found the lights. So these two lights are the four-wheel drive light and the four-wheel drive low light coming up. They went up to the dash. So I might be able to get some custom lights made that say four-wheel drive low and four-wheel drive high, because when you switch, you know, it sometimes is delayed, and you know, you might have to roll it back and forth and stuff. And since I don't have that data display in the dash, it's not going to tell me that. So I won't, if I switch it, and I won't know if it's in gear or not. So with those lights, once they light up, I'll know that it actually did shift, and it's actually in four-wheel drive low, or you know, four high, whatever I'm in. So I might do that. Just that's at the end of the project kind of a deal. So I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but you know, you kind of got to keep track of all that stuff, especially when you're cutting wires. Because unfortunately, I did cut out the four-wheel drive wires out of the dash harness, which this is what's left of the dash harness. So I'll have to add those back in, because I wasn't thinking that when I was doing the cutting. But it won't be too. There's like 5 or 6 or something wires, I think. Probably more, but that won't be too bad. I'll just figure that out as I get to that point. But I mentioned earlier that I didn't have enough fittings to do the fuel pump. And turns out I do. I went digging and I found enough fuel fittings. I think I have enough. I just don't have enough hose right now. I'm going to get some fuel hose and hook up the fuel pump. And I've already tested the circuit. If you have it, see it hooked up here. The fuel pump is running off the computer. So all I got to do is hook those hoses up and put it in some fuel. And we're going to see if this thing will run. So I'm going to go to town, get some fuel line and rig this thing up. And then hopefully when I get back, we'll see if this thing will fire off. All right, guys, well, I have the fuel pump and everything hooked up, got my fittings and everything hooked up. I have it putting in a couple gallons of fuel here so it can run. This is my feed going into my engine filter there, the fine filter on the engine, and this is return coming off the fuel rail. Goes through the fuel pump and then feed and return basically in the fuel there. So I have that all hooked up. Got the pump running, and I've circulated this several times, and you know, got the air out of the system. You can kind of hear it when all the air gets out of the system and kind of tell. But I've cycled the key on and off several times. So I guess we'll see how this goes. I'm going to set the camera up over here, and I'll try to start it. All right, guys, so here it goes. I'm not going to let it run very long, obviously, because we don't have a cooling system. I'll crank it up and see how it sounds. If everything sounds good, and I'm seeing oil pressure on my scanner here, then I'll let it run for just a little bit, and might grab the camera and walk around just a little bit, but then I'll shut it off. We can't let it run for very long, but wish me luck. Let's see how it goes. All right, just looking up my oil pressure sensor here on my scanner. Right there it is, so I can just make sure it has oil pressure, and we'll cycle the key one more time so it has the fuel pump running, and we'll give it a go. There, we got everything running. Yeah. So I guess that means it runs. It sounded really good. I'm happy about that for as long as this thing's been sitting and not running. It's been several years now since I started it. Pretty happy with that. A lot of times these injectors can kind of stick, and they sound terrible whenever they do that. It sounds like an engine knocking. I mean, it just sounds like you have a rod bearing going out, just knock, 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 knock. But it's actually called a fuel knock with these injectors. But I'm glad we didn't hear any of that. It sounded really good, smooth. All the injectors are firing. It actually started up a lot easier than I thought it was going to, which is a plus. You know, that means the fuel system and everything was still tight and didn't get any air in the system and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really happy with that. So I guess from now, I'm moving on to, I need to get the cab set on, I gotta get the cab set back on the frame here so I can start mocking up the actual routing of all the wiring harnesses and get all that sorted out and routed the way I want it to. So I think we're probably going to do that on another episode. I'm going to cut this one off here. I hope you guys enjoyed this and getting this 6.7 Powerstroke, this modern engine running. I know a lot of my subscribers here on YouTube have been looking forward to a resto mod kind of build, or a modern power plant and plus a diesel power plant in one of these trucks. So this kind of checks all those boxes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying this series. We're going to see a lot more on this truck in the channel in the future. I hope it's my main project going into the spring and early summer. Hopefully that's my main project on this channel. You guys are going to see a ton more of this truck. So if you like this project, give me a thumbs up on this video so I know. Hit the subscribe button so you can see more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone.